Okay, we are now recording. Sorry about that, Sarah.
Great. So in Maryland, we have two chambers. It's a bicameral structure. One slide back. There we go. The General Assembly consists of two chambers, the Senate and the House of Delegates. The Senate has 47 members, one for each legislative district, so you have 47 senators. And the House of Delegates have 141 members, generally about three delegates per district. There are some exceptions to that, but roughly three delegates per district. So you have a total of 141 members. The session length is always 90 consecutive days, starting from the second Wednesday in January to April. And special sessions, which we might touch on, can be called by the governor, presiding officers. One was just called yesterday, which is unusual for the election of a new speaker, as well as some veto overrides. Next slide. So here's how the bill introduction piece works. Bills can only be introduced by General Assembly members. So the governor can't introduce his own bill. He has to go through a legislator, and usually that comes from the Speaker of the House or the Senate President. So bills can only be introduced by General Assembly members. Senators introduce bills in the Senate. Delegates introduce bills in the House of Delegates. Bills are drafted with the assistance from the Department of Legislative Services, which is a non-partisan professional group that assists with bill drafting and fiscal analyses. Bills can be pre-filed before sessions to give them some priority in terms of timing generally. And in fact, we're waiting on pre-filed bills for the 2026 Maryland General Assembly, which we expect in the next few weeks. Next slide. So how does this work? After a bill is introduced and read on the floor, they're assigned to a standing committee. Standing committees have a lot of power in the General Assembly. In the Senate, there are four standing committees. There's Budget and Tax, Finance, Education, Energy, and the Environment, and the Judicial Proceedings Committee. For our purposes, most of our bills, if not all of the bills, go to the Finance Committee, which takes up healthcare related matters. In the House, there are six committees as of now. There is some rumor that there may be another committee created with the new speaker just elected yesterday. Those committees are Appropriations, Economic Matters, Environment and Transportation, Health and Government Operations, Judiciary, Ways and Means. Most of our bills, again, typically in the House, go to Health and Government Operations committees. In that case, committees hold hearings, review the testimony which we submit, and consider any amendments to the bill. The committee typically votes on whether to report the bill favorably, unfavorably, or take no action. If the bill is voted unfavorably or the committee takes no action, the bill is effectively dead. And so that is important to note. The only way the bill moves is if it's reported favorably with or without amendments. Next slide. So as I was saying, the first reading of a bill, there are three readings. The first reading of a bill is a procedural step with no debate, and that occurs on the Senate or the House floor when they read it over the desk. The second reading is back on the floor. It's a debate on the bill after it's passed committee, and there's proposed amendments can be considered on the floor. And then the third reading is the final vote by the chamber. If the bill passes out of that chamber, which typically it does if it gets to third reading on the floor, it then moves to the other chamber for similar consideration and process. Next slide. So as I said, if it passes one chamber, it goes to the other chamber for consideration. That process is very similar to the Chamber of Origin, where there's a referral to a standing committee. There are hearings again. There's floor debate. If it moves out of that opposite committee and voting. Amendments typically still require approval by the originating chamber, or a conference committee is appointed where there are three members of the Senate and 3 members of the House that come together to try and work out the details of the bill to report that bill favorably if the chambers can't agree on the amendments made. Next slide. So once both chambers pass the bill, it goes to the governor, and the governor can take a couple of different actions. The governor can sign the bill, in which case it becomes law. It can veto the bill or take no action. If he vetoes the bill, then, or she vetoes the bill, then it could be overridden, which by a 3/5 majority in both chambers. If the governor takes no action, the bill will become law in a matter of days. So that's important to note. But veto overrides require 3/5 majority in chambers, in each chamber. And as you may have read yesterday in the special session, the General Assembly overrode about 8 or 9, I think, if not that many, a number of bills, I should say, overrode a number of the bills the governor vetoed from the 2025 Maryland General Assembly session. Next slide. So laws typically take effect on October 1st of the same year if passed during the regular session. So if it's passed in that session, which generally ends the second Monday of April, it would generally take effect October 1st. There is some variances to that. As many of you may know, the alternate board member on CCRC's bills that passed last session has an effective date of January 1st, which is right around the corner. That was our efforts in working with the sponsor to allow our members additional time to make sure their bylaws were in order to accommodate the alternate board member. Special session laws have different effective dates, and that's just based upon when the special session is called and can be called by the governor or the presiding officers. The presiding officers are also known as the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. Next slide. So emergency legislation requires a 3/5 majority and takes effect immediately upon the governor's signature. We don't see too many emergency bills, but it does occur, and it's usually warranted by some factor that requires some quick timing. Constitutional amendments require 3/5 approval and are submitted to voters in a referendum at the next election, typically. Next slide. In terms of the budget process, we, as many of you know, really work on the budget each session for the Medicaid reimbursement rate. So we keep our eyes peeled on that. The governor submits a balanced budget to the General Assembly, and the General Assembly can reduce or delete items, but cannot increase appropriations. Next slide. So what are the sort of macro issues we expect to see this session? As I noted, the House is undergoing some change with the new Speaker, Jocelyn Pena-Melnick, who was the former chair of the House Health and Government Operations Committee, is now the Speaker of the House as of yesterday. And so we might see some changes in committee membership and some changes in committee structure, but that is yet to be seen. But in terms of our big ticket issues that we expect to see, generally is the budget deficit. Maryland is facing a $1.4 billion budget deficit. The governor has vowed no new taxes, so there will be some tough decisions to be made, including on Medicaid reimbursement rates. Redistricting, mid-cycle redistricting has been an issue across this country, and it's been an issue in Maryland. The governor has set up an advisory commission to study it. The Senate president has vowed his opposition to mid-cycle redistricting out of concern that it could cause reverberation, and it will certainly be challenged in court and could end up with a worse makeup for the Maryland Democrats than currently situated at 7 members of Congress as Dems and 1 as a Republican. Housing affordability and land use reform will be a major focus. Focusing on starter homes and silver homes, I think is what we're calling them, Allison. and streamline permitting and revisions to developer vesting rights. We'll see legislation likely from the Maryland Association of Counties to look at earlier vesting and some zoning reform. Transportation funding and infrastructure will be a concern by local government advocacy groups as they try and restore highway user revenues and obtain sustainable funding for roads, bridges, and transit. And then I expect some data privacy and AI regulation. Business groups have listed cyber technology and data privacy among top items of their 2026 agenda. Next slide. In terms of our industry, here are some of the issues that we expect will recur. Of course, we're going to look, as I mentioned, at the Medicaid budget item and make sure that there's some significant increase, although probably unlikely given the budget deficit. But we will have some bills on CCRCs, it looks like, everyone's favorite topic. We might see bills on entrance fee refunds, additional board representation, as well as we're hearing rumblings of legislation that may require resident representation on a parent board, which would be the only state in the country to do such a thing. So we will vociferously oppose that. We will also look at policies that expand affordable senior housing and enhance access to home-based aging services. And then Maryland Department of Aging will have a Longevity Ready Maryland Act. This effectively codifies their Longevity Ready Maryland plan. And we have been in touch with the Department of Aging on that proposal as they've shared it with us. Healthcare access and workforce support will continue to be a topic of conversation as the healthcare workforce crisis continues. So we'll look for measures to enhance training, recruitment, and retention of healthcare professionals. And as I mentioned, expand funding for Medicaid and home and community-based services to support Maryland's aging population. The other thing I might mention is you've seen a number of articles recently about unlicensed assisted living facilities. We anticipate there will be some measures to try and address that as other states have taken some very aggressive and interesting approaches to trying to address that. So we will be engaged on that front as well. I think that concludes it. Next slide might just be a big question mark in case anyone has any questions. I know I probably ran through that faster than I should have, but certainly open to any questions that I can try and answer.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Can you talk a bit more about the special session yesterday and how that worked? And I don't believe that any of the bills that were voted on are of particular concern to any of our members, but just any other thoughts on how the special session went and the outcome?
Yeah, so there were a number of climate and energy bills that were overridden or vetoes that were overridden by the General Assembly, including one on studying uh, data centers and its impact on the market, the energy market in the state, and the affordability crisis that we're facing. But yesterday was largely, I don't want to say ceremonial, but it was a bit of a ceremony to elect the next speaker. It was called by the governor to do so. Both chambers were in, where Speaker Jocelyn Pena-Melnick was unanimously elected as the next Speaker of the House. She'll have a fair amount of control on what the House looks like going forward, what their agenda might be, and committee structures, as I alluded to before. Standing committees are incredibly powerful, and so how she stacks them and how she um, uh, uh, breaks them out, if she is looking at adding another standing committee to the already existing six. Those will all be ongoing questions we'll find out in the coming weeks.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the committees that we work with the most. So Thanks, Erin. Danita has a question here. Are there any initiatives in affordable senior housing that support current current modification or home repair programs such as GGH and hubs? Danita, I'm not aware of any legislation that would put any more resource behind those programs. Um, Erin, are you aware of anything?
I am not. I am not aware.
And I think given the budget situation that we're in, new funding or increased funding for any existing programs, I think is probably unlikely. Um, I I know that we will be working to support the bill that the Department of Aging is introducing around Longevity Ready Maryland, as we feel it's a really important step to codify Longevity Ready Maryland and to build in some greater accountability for all of state government. And so potentially there's opportunities there for the state to partner together in a better way that um, potentially would help identify resources or areas where there's additional support available for older adults, but nothing that's a direct increase in resources for those programs. Are there any other questions that folks have today? Great. Well, I'll just say our policy committee meets every Monday during legislative session and reviews many, many bills and determines which bills Leading Age Maryland will engage on, which we will oppose, which we will support, which we will just monitor. So if you have an interest in getting more involved with our advocacy work, I invite you to reach out to me and I would be glad to get you connected in with the policy committee. I know several of the folks who are on the call today are part of the policy committee, so thank you for your volunteerism and supporting and representing our members so well. Thank you, Sarah. I also wanted to note we are holding our annual legislative reception on January 22nd in Annapolis. So that is a great opportunity to come and meet directly with the legislators who hear the bills that affect our settings. It's an informal cocktail reception, hors d'oeuvres, and we invite both the Senate Finance Committee and the House Health and Government Operations Committee. So we encourage you to register and to join us in Annapolis. Erin, is there anything else or any closing comments you might have?
No, just very much appreciate the policy committee's time and engagement on a number of issues that we face each week. It's a short time frame. There's a lot of substance to get your head around. I just very much appreciate the policy committee's commitment to this process.
Great. Well, we will be sharing updates as we learn more about what's to come during session. This time of year feels a little bit like hurry up and wait. But we will be back in touch with folks and a recording will be posted. So if you have other colleagues who want to know more about how the legislative process works here in Maryland or what's upcoming, it'll be linked on our website and in our digest this week. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and it was great to spend some time with you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.